Good day, it's JJ MMA. Today, we are going to be breaking down the top 20 pound for pound fighters currently in the UFC. And this is a current pound for pound ranking, not all time. So if you ask me, JJ, where's John Jones? It's because he's not currently in the UFC, and this is not an all time ranking. So there you go with that. Some notable criteria that we will be using to determine the spots on the list. Wins in the last 3 years. So, if you're going to ask me, where's Adesanya, JJ? It's because, he's on a 4-fight losing skid. The next one is quality of wins. So if you're just stacking up a 5-fight winning streak against cans in the outside the rankings, if you're Michael Chiesa maxing, just 4-fight winning streak against straight cans to end off your career, you're not going to be anywhere near my pound for pound list. And finally, losses. Who have you lost against? How have you lost? Also, how have you won? That's another important one to mention. How have you won? Are you just edging out decisions, or are you dominating your opponents? Are you submitting them? Are you knocking them out? Are you getting TKOs? So this is all criteria. This is all things that will play into where I rank these fighters. So my first honorable mention. We're going to start off with some honorable mentions here. Our boy Big Ankh, Magomed Ankalaev. The reason he isn't higher is because, he doesn't have great quality of wins. Johnny Walker, very, very chinny, got TKO'd in this one. One of the chinniest fighters in the UFC, Johnny Walker, not a very good win. If you guys want me to make a list of top 10 chinniest chins in the UFC, just let me know in the comments down below. But, Johnny Walker is obviously going to rank very high on that list. He's got one of the chinniest chins of all time. In his last fight against Dominic Reyes, he was kind of just like scared at range, just leg kicking, basically avoiding combat at all costs. And then Alexander Rakic, a very plotty version of Alexander Rakic, post ACL surgery, Alexander Rakic, so kind of a shell of himself. I feel bad for him. He's on a bad trajectory in his career. He's moving up to heavyweight. Hopefully he can rebound there. But, Alexander Rakic in the Big 26 is not looking so good. Ankalaev did beat him in 24, though, so I guess Rakic in the Big 24, not a very good win. And then an Alex Pereira, but an injured Alex Pereira. That's very important to note. Alex Pereira looked like a shell of himself in this fight, but yet he was still able to stuff all of Ankh's takedowns. Ankh went 0 for 13 shooting takedowns. He's known as the big bad Dagestani of the light heavyweight division, the guy to watch out for in the grappling. And he wasn't able to get down Pereira, who is obviously has a kickboxing background. Came to the UFC off of Glory Kickboxing and a few MMA fights on the regional scene. And, usually the grapplers that we've seen fight him have been able to take him down. Adesanya got him down in the first fight. And he's obviously not the big imposing grappler that you would think of Ankalaev being. So yeah, Ankalaev wasn't able to get him down. And then, in the next fight, Ankh just got dominated by Pereira. Pereira came out angry. He threw that big meaty overhand and stumbled Ankalaev with it. Ankalaev tried to wrestle, and then Pereira just rained down elbows on him, and that was the end of the fight. So Ankalaev, I know the UFC has him in, their top 15 officially on the UFC page, but I don't think he's top 15 ranked pound for pound fighter. He's good for the light heavyweight division. I don't think he beats Olberg, though, and I'll talk about that later. But yeah, this is where I have Ankalaev outside the top 20. We move on to our final honorable mention, and this guy's very underrated. He's not quite the gatekeeper because he's ranked fairly high in his division, but Manel Kape, Mr. Gyno right here. Yeah, I think he gives everyone at the top of the flyweight division problems. I think he might give Pantoja problems. Actually, no, I don't think he gives Pantoja problems because Pantoja has a granite chin, and, Kape doesn't have that much skill. He's pretty precise, but I don't think he has the amount of skill to even knock out an old man Pantoja. I do think he finishes Van. I think he finishes Tatsuro Taira. Kape has decent grappling defense. I mean, he obviously lost to a Muhammad Mokaev here, but Muhammad Mokaev is very good, as we know, 7-0 before he got cut from the UFC for being too boring. You know, you might as well cut all the Dagestanis at that point. You might as well cut all the crotch sniffers like Hamzat. But, you know, all those guys, just cut them then. You know, you cut Jelton Almeida, might as well cut Islam Makhachev. No, I'm playing. I understand why they cut Jelton Almeida. But, you know, he was kind of avoiding combat at all costs, whereas Islam's trying for submissions, you know, throwing his little flicky kicks out there to the legs. But yeah, anyways, let me get off that tangent. You know, Manel Kape has pretty solid wins. Felipe Dos Santos, not a solid win. But that, you know, Felipe Dos Santos 1-3 in the UFC. That was just a can that Manel Kape beat up on. Lonnie Kavanaugh also beat Felipe Dos Santos. Bruno Silva, he's a solid fighter He's a solid fighter at the bottom of the rankings. You know, he just recently gave the big Charles Johnson problems. Charles Johnson is legit. He's knocked out Joshua Van and Lonnie Kavanaugh. He kind of fluked Lonnie Kavanaugh, though. He did not fluke Van. He was beating Van. Asu Almabayev, very good win. Asu Almabayev, he's a good grappler, got decent striking. Brandon Royval's a very good win, and the way that he won is also very different than the rest of these. Even though he did get the finish here, Brandon Royval, you know, he's not the guy that you just knock out and dominate like Manel Kape did. You know, at the end of last year, the last event of the year, Manel Kape versus Royval, main event, and you know, he surprised me with his performance against Royval. He knocked out Brandon Royval, just sparked him out cold like that. It was very impressive, you know, and Manel Kape, he has some serious power for flyweight. This guy has like Topuria level power for flyweight, Pereira level power for flyweight. You know, this guy, if you guys want me to make a top 10 power pound for pound list, you know, I can do that too, because Manel Kape ranks pretty high in this as well. But yeah, Manel Kape, he has the one-hitter quitter at flyweight, which is very, very impressive. And yeah, I think he gives trouble to a lot of guys in the flyweight division. He's a solid pound-for-pound fighter. We move on. We're going to start off on our top 20 list. At number 20, you might be surprised about how low that I have him, but once again, this is a current list. And, you know, he's not quite washed yet. And, you know I love Max Holloway. Anybody who knows me knows I love Max Holloway. Max Holloway, he's one of my favorite fighters. You know, he's a true savage. You know, he's always willing to point down and brawl with you at the end of the fight. You know, we all love Max Holloway. But, you know, I don't think that he's, like, compared to some of these guys that I have above him, I just don't think that pound for pound he would beat them stylistically. And that's why he's so low on the list. I think that he fares against a lot of guys in the lightweight division decently well. But after I saw how Charles Oliveira just blobbed him with the wrestling, and I know Charles Oliveira is a very good wrestler, by the way. He is a very good offensive wrestler, probably a top 5 offensive wrestler in the UFC. And just because he's Brazilian doesn't mean, whoa, he's a jiu-jitsu artist. He's a wrestler. He's a wrestler and a jiu-jitsu artist. So, you know, I know he's Brazilian and I know he's got tattoos, but he is a wrestler and he's a very good wrestler. But anyways, Max Holloway couldn't defend his wrestling at all. So, you know, that kind of concerns me for Max with other guys in the division. You know, obviously a Benoit Saint Denis is not going to blob him like a Charles did, because Charles is a lot better offensively with the wrestling than Benoit Saint Denis is. You know, he's got the loss to Ilia Topturo. But, you know, Ilya just sparks everyone out cold, it looks like. So I'm not going to hold that against him. Ilya, he's high up on my GOAT list. He's high up on this pound-for-pound list. Ilya, he is one of the stars of the UFC. There's no shame in losing to Ilya. There's no shame in losing to Charles either. So those are 2 very good quality losses to have on your resume. Now we look at the wins. We got Arnold Allen. It's a pretty solid win in the featherweight division. You know, he's hard to finish, hard to dispose of. Max didn't get the finish here, but, you know, he did beat Arnold Allen pretty clearly. I think it was a 49-46. TKZ, he was trying to brawl with Max in his last fight. You know, Max was dominating the fight, and then he knocked him out at the start of round 3. And, you know, he flatlined TKZ. You know, he hasn't... There's something on my screen. You know, he doesn't really flatline that many people. And he flatlined TKZ. So recently, you know, he's been getting that power. You know, as he's been getting older, he's been getting bulkier. He's been getting more power. So, yeah, he flatlined TKZ. And then after that, you know, he flatlined he flat Dustin Gaethje. He flatlined Justin Gaethje. He flatlined Justin Gaethje. I know it was the last second knockout, but he was dominating the rest of the fight, even though Gaethje did knock him down in round 4, I guess. Yeah, I mean, that was impressive by Justin Gaethje though, to knock him down in round 4, because that was I believe that was the first time, maybe besides a Volk knockdown, that Max ever been knocked down in his career. So good on our boy Rufus there, but he ended up getting knocked out. And yeah, that was a classic Max performance, classic fight. One of the best knockouts of all time for Max. And then Dustin Poirier, the third time. Everybody says this is a wash Poirier, but this is not a far out from prime Poirier. That version of Dustin, Dustin dropped Max. He tried to jump the gilly, but he's never gonna get that, sadly. But I mean, yeah, that was not a far out from prime Dustin Poirier. He was very in shape. He looked decent. He did get wobbled he got dropped by Max in the first, and then he got wobbled a few times by Max. I believe once in the third, once in the fourth, something like that. But yeah, Max was kind of dominating Dustin Poirier besides the knockdown. Same thing with the Justin Gaethje fight. Max total domination against TKZ. The way that he won all these fights is very quality. So that's why, I would still rank him at number 20 in the pound for pound list. But TKZ is not a very quality opponent, to be honest with you. Arnold Allen's a decent quality opponent. Gaethje is a good quality opponent, and so is Dustin Poirier. So yeah, there's my ranking for Max Holloway. We move on to number 19. Our boy Sugar Sean O'Malley, yes sir, one of my favorite fighters. We are gonna style on Amin Zahabi at the White House. We are getting a layup matchup at the White House, and yeah, Sean O'Malley, he's very good, very very good fighter. His wins are very quality. Aljamain Sterling, I mean, besides Cheeto Vera is not a very quality win, obviously. Cheeto Vera is like why'd they give him Cheeto for the title? That's the main factor. That's the main example of Dana White privilege right there. That's how you know he had Dana White privilege, because Cheeto Vera did not deserve the title shot. He just got a layup and he styled on Cheeto Vera. So I mean, it's a good win how he did it. You're not going to knock out Cheeto Vera. He's got a granite chin. Very hard to knock out. Good off the back foot. But yeah, I mean, the only 2 losses that he's had is to Merab, and I don't hold that against you. You lose to Merab. The second fight he got submitted, obviously. He was getting more so dominated in the second fight. Like, Merab was starting to win on the feet because Sean was so worried about the grappling. In the first fight, he had Merab hurt in the 5th round. People forget, man, that teep to the body was hurting Merab, but it actually was. He was actually kind of close to finishing Merab in the first fight. So yeah, pretty decent. Those are those are quality losses. I don't hold that against Sean. Obviously, the classic knockout over Aljo, that's a very, very good win. Aljamain Sterling is a very good win. He's pretty close to top 20 all time for me. So, and that was Aljo at his peak. And, Aljo's obviously still very good, as we saw last night. He got the win over Yusuf Zalal via domination. But yeah, very good win over Aljamain Sterling. And then Song Yadong, too. There's some Twitter bots that say, he got... Song Yadong got robbed by Sean O'Malley. No, he didn't. It was a clear 29-28. Very clear 29-28. Song Yadong won round 2. Very clear rounds 1 and 3 won for Sean O'Malley. It was a close fight. I'll give you that. It was a close fight until the 3rd round. Then Sean really pulled away with the knee up the middle that got Song Yadong bleeding all over the mouth. I mean, yeah, Sean O'Malley, he's a very good striker. Obviously, a big hole in his game with the wrestling. Defensive wrestling is kind of bad from Sean O'Malley. He got taken down pretty easily by Song Yadong. Song Yadong was able to get to the hips almost immediately on Sean O'Malley. Like, pretty much no resistance until the 3rd round in the grappling from Sean O'Malley, when he started to finally push down on the head, get away, spin out of the single legs that Yadong was trying to shoot on him. But yeah, that's my ranking for Sean O'Malley. We move on to the number 18 spot. I thought pretty long and hard about this one, and there was some competition for the 18 spot, but ultimately, and this ranking might piss some of you guys off, but I got Ian Gary right here. I don't like Ian Gary either. He's very, very annoying to me. You're so childish, Hamza. This voice makes me so mad. But anyways, he's gonna get the title shot against Islam, and I think he'll lose. So that'll make me happy. But yeah, he's got a quality loss. Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat's very good. Shavkat's not that proven yet. To be honest with you, he's not that proven yet. Obviously, win over Ian Gary's very good, but Shavkat's probably the best in the welterweight division besides Islam, and we'll have that conversation later too. But yeah, that loss against Shavkat, I don't hold that against Ian Gary resume-wise. His wins, D-Rod, mediocre win. D-Rod, he's kind of hard to finish. Neil Magny, good win. Jeff Neal. Neil Magny's not a good win. That's like a fraud check fight. Like, if you don't get past Neil Magny, you're a fraud. Until you fix things up like Mike Malott just did. But Jeff Neal's a decent win. Before he got knocked out by Prates, Jeff Neal was actually kind of a dangerous fighter. Michael Venom Page is actually a very underrated win. Because Michael Venom Page, he'll play that same game that Ian Gary does. I'm rangy, I'm going to tap you up like this. I'm winning the round because I'm up by a few strikes. So very good win there by Ian Gary. And then Carlos Prates, he did dominate Carlos Prates at range. Both guys are rangy. And Ian Gary just kind of speed maxed and speed mogged him. And he got the win over Carlos Prates there. Agility mogged Carlos Prates. He just had more finesse and he was more snappy and he didn't have more pop, because I guess he has more pop but not more power. I guess there's a difference there. Ian Gary's not the power guy that's going to knock you out. If he's going to get a finish over you, it's going to be a TKO, but you also do have to be kind of low level with the striking defense to be finished by a guy like Ian Gary. And then Bilal Muhammad, obviously former champion, really good win, shut down all of Bilal's grappling. Very good performance in the defensive grappling there by Ian Gary. So yeah, Ian Gary has really solid wins and he has a really underrated resume. I'll be interested to watch his fight with Islam. Hopefully he loses, but yeah, there's my spot for Ian Gary. I don't think he's being talked about enough in the pound for pound rankings. But we move on to number 17. Another close spot for me to think about. But ultimately, I ended up settling with Diego Lopez here. And, Diego Lopez, I know he's 6-3 in the UFC. And in the last 3 years, I know there's a lot of fights on the screen right now. But that's because in the last 3 years, every single fight that he's had has been in the UFC. He made his debut in 2023, and he's already had 2 shots at the title. And that's because he is simply that good. He's very, very dangerous on the ground with the jiu-jitsu. And he's got so much power on the feet, and he's got great boxing. He's got good kicks. Even though he kind of kicks with his foot, he's such a dog that he'll kick with his foot, he'll break his foot, and he'll keep kicking with it. Diego Lopez is a dog. He's got wins over, Gavin Tucker, unranked guy. Don't really know about him. It's kind of just a can that they handed to him. Pat Sabatini, he's outside the rankings, and he's good at featherweight. So I'll give him that one. Sadiq Youssef, kind of an win. Dan Ige, tough guy to get past. And also, this was on short notice, and he had to re-weigh in for this fight. But yeah, decent win there from Diego Lopez. Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega does get tough at times, and he does get crafty. And Diego Lopez did knock him out on the feet, and then he hit him with another follow-up shot, and Brian Ortega woke back up from him. So he did technically knock out Brian Ortega. People forget, man, he knocked out the big, crafty Brian Ortega. I just had to rip out the Joe Rogan impression. Anyways, Gene Silva win. Very good spinning elbow knockout there by Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez, he was just eating every big shot on the chin from a guy with tons of power like Gene Silva. So that's very impressive to me too. Obviously, I think the best attribute from Diego Lopez is his granite chin because he has no head movement. He just keeps his head on the center line and he eats everything. And that's probably going to come back to bite him in the ass later in his career. But, we'll see how it fares out for him. He might end up like Max where he's getting more chinny. Hopefully not. Diego Lopez is one of my favorite fighters too. He's a badass fighter. His losses though, Volk 1 and 2. This is a slower version of Volk. However, Volk is still, he's still got the skill. He's still fast even though he's getting slower. This is a very it's still a very good Volk. Still a very good version of Volk. He's not washed yet. A little bit chinny. Diego Lopez knocked him down in both of their fights. But yeah, I don't hold that loss against you if you lose to Volk twice. And then Movsar Evloev on his debut. This was on short notice. I think if he fights Movsar again, I think he beats him. And that's why, spoiler alert, I don't have Movsar anywhere in the pound-for-pound list. It's because I think Diego Lopez will beat him in a rematch if they fight again. Movsar kind of just edges past his opponents in these close decision wins. And I don't think he'll be able to do that to Diego Lopez if they fight again. So, there you go. That's my ranking for Diego Lopez. We move on to the number 16 spot. And who else to put here but our boy Sean Strickland. Now, here's the fucking thing, you guys. Here's the fucking thing about this Chechen whore. I can't wait to see him fight Hamzat. He's going to lose, sadly, though. Let's be honest. He is going to get mauled. He's going to get takedown mogged. He might get laid on, or he might just get submitted. I think that's what's going to happen. If he wins somehow, if he pulls out that underdog win, that classic Rocky against Ivan Drago performance, I will be so happy. I will be so happy. The UFC will officially be back. The UFC won't be washed anymore if that happens. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be Hamzat via lay and pray or a sub. But we'll talk about that in 2 weeks when the fight is coming up. Anyways, we're going to talk about Sean Strickland and the pound-for-pound rankings here currently. So his wins in the last 3 years are Nasruddin Mavov, very good win on 2 weeks' notice, by the way. Very, very good win to start it off. Abbas Magomedov, a decent win. Joe Pyfer just jiu-jitsu mogged him. Israel Adesanya. This is Prime Izzy, by the way. Prime Izzy. So another very good win. Very dominant performance by Strickland, by the way. The only round that Izzy took off of him was round 2. And this was in Australia. I don't know if it was Perth. I said Western Australia. I don't really care. But anyways, people. I know the Drix Duplessis, the DDP-1 fight counts as a loss on his resume, but it shouldn't because it was a robbery. It was a close fight, so I guess not a robbery, but I do think he won. I think this was a pretty clear 48-47 win for Strickland. I had it 2-2 going into round 5, and I think Strickland did enough in round 5 to edge out the win against DDP in the first fight. And DDP even said like he couldn't walk. He had to crawl to the bathroom. He had to crawl to the bathroom in his house because of the amount of damage that Strickland did on him. Strickland did more damage on DDP than DDP did on Strickland in the first fight. So that's why I think Strickland beat DDP in the first fight. After that, he beat Paulo Costa. I know it says split decision on his record, but it was a very, very clear 49-46 decision. I think that the judge that scored it for Costa was smoking crack. And yeah, very clear 49-46, maybe a 48-47 from Strickland against Paulo Costa there. And then a very, very good win 2 months ago from Sean Strickland over Anthony Hernandez. This was a finish. None of these fights have been finishes except for the one over Anthony Hernandez. He just TKO'd Anthony Hernandez in round 3, knee up the middle of the body, and then teed off on him against the cage. Just absolutely style mogged and just fight mogged Anthony Hernandez. It was an amazing performance from Sean Strickland. At 34 years of age, he's still able to do this. Still able to get past and finish a surging prospect on an 8-fight win streak like Anthony Hernandez. Very, very impressive from Sean Strickland. And then really his only loss. It's probably going to be Hamzat soon, but I won't hold that against him. Drix Duplessis too. He got taken down a lot. He got his nose broken by DDP. Despite getting taken down a lot, he was getting up well. But very clear 49-46, probably 50-45 by DDP against Strickland in the second fight. DDP got that one back. And yeah, there you go. That's my ranking for Strickland. We move on. Now, number 15 might get a few people mad at me, but I don't really care. I don't like this guy's fight style, but he is very, very good and he's underrated. Umar Nurmagomedov. I don't like to see him at number 15 pound for pound, but it is what it is. He's very good. He's got wins over Raoni Barcelos, crafty vet. He's going to be in the rankings by Tuesday. Beksat Almakhan, good win. Very underrated win, actually. Almakhan's only fought guys like Umar and Alexandre Topuria in the UFC so far, so he hasn't really got a chance to display his talent. But Beksat Almakhan is actually very good, and he has had close fights with Umar and with Alexandre Topuria. Corey Sandhagen, obviously very, very good win here from Umar. Corey Sandhagen has grappling himself, and he just got completely dominated. I mean, I guess not completely dominated, but he got beat pretty well by Umar Nurmagomedov here. And then Mario Batista, very, very underrated win here from Umar. Umar almost got submitted by Mario Batista. I think Mario Batista had him in it was either a triangle choke or an armbar or something like that, and he almost got Umar with it. He almost tapped out Umar with it, but Umar wasn't going to tap. He got out of it well, and he got past Mario Batista in a very good win. Davison Figueiredo, he absolutely dominated. I don't know why he was fighting Davison Figueiredo in the first place in the Big 2-6. And then he lost to Merab. He was up 2-0 against Merab, and then Merab made a crazy comeback, won the last 3 rounds clearly. People who say robbery are slow in the head. He lost to Merab 3-2. Close fight, though. And he did break, I do believe that he broke his hand in round 3 or whenever it was. So it'll be interesting to see a Merab and Umar rematch. Umar is very good, but right now I'm only willing to put him at number 15. We move on. Dricus du Plessis. Now, we lost to Hamzat. We got blogged by Hamzat. We witnessed it live, sadly. But I mean, yeah. Dricus he's still very good. I think Dricus beats everyone else in the rankings besides... Yeah, he beats everyone in the middleweight division except for Hamzat. He beats everyone in middleweight except for Hamzat. Maybe a bad stylistic matchup is someone like a RoboCop who could maybe knock him out, but Dricus also does have a chin. So, and we did see Cannonier beat up on Gregory Rodriguez. So, I think that Dricus beats everyone in the middleweight division except for Hamzat. Everyone in the rankings is getting beat by Dricus. If Dricus fights Amavov, I think he'll beat Amavov. I recently mentioned that in my UFC fights to make for main events video. Go check that out on the channel. Derek Brunson as his first win in the 3-year stretch. Not a very quality win, but I mean it's a win. He disposed of him by TKO. Robert Whittaker, he finished Robert Whittaker by TKO. That was still a good win, especially at the time. Robert Whittaker still had some hype. Robert Whittaker was still dangerous at the time. I don't think he's really that dangerous anymore. I do believe he's kind of washed. Having a close fight with Rainier de Ridder kind of means you're washed. And, he did win that. I do think Robert Whittaker won that. I think Robert Whittaker won a pretty clear 3-2 against Rainier de Ridder. But, he didn't get it. It is what it is. He's moving up to light heavyweight anyways. I think he'll beat a guy like Jamal Hill at light heavyweight, but I would be scared for him against anyone else. Anyways, DDP did beat Adesanya. Adesanya was beating him for the first 3 rounds, and then Dricus wobbled him against the cage and took him down and submitted him with a rear naked choke. Dricus does have a very good rear naked choke. He almost finished Hamzat with it. People forget, man. He had Hamzat on the ropes in round 5. He actually did. And, just terrible times, man. Terrible times. Hope he gets it back. I don't think he will, but, anyways, Sean Strickland, too. He dominated Sean Strickland in the second fight, as we just mentioned. He lost. I do believe he lost the robbery. I do believe he lost the first fight to Sean Strickland, even though it counts on his record. And then he obviously got blobbed by Hamzat. It was AI, though. Yeah, that's my ranking spot for Dricus. We move on to number 13 spot. I think that he's already proven enough to be here. I think that the Black Jag, Carlos Ulberg, has proven enough to be at this number 13 spot, and he is actually very good. He is very good. He is, I heard someone say he's like a reverse Joshua Van, and it's like the truest thing I've ever heard, because knocking out a guy like Yuri Prohaska, and I know Yuri Prohaska is also kind of slow in the head. He's not he obviously has terrible fight IQ, and yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about my boy Yuri losing, but Carlos Solberg got the knockout on one leg. We also witnessed that one live too. Sad times. We had to witness that one. Very rough. But yeah, I mean, he caught him with the left hook. Carlos Solberg is in some ways, he's more of a sniper than Alex Pereira is. People aren't ready to have that discussion, but Carlos Solberg, he's very entertaining. He's a sniper with that left hook. He'll catch you on the chin in just the right spot. He caught Dominic Reyes with it. I forgot to put Dominic Reyes on here. There you go. Dominic Reyes. I forgot about him. Yeah, he caught Dominic Reyes on the chin with that left hook too. He's a sniper with it. He catches Alonzo Menefield. I guess Alonzo Menefield, Alonzo Menefield with a CTE speed run, and he just ran right to Carlos Solberg in round one, and he was trying to speed run a knockout. And Carlos Solberg is a sniper. He's not going to let you do stuff like that. He's just not going to let you do it to him. He's not going to let you just run at him and chin you immediately like, Ankalaev does. Ankalaev let Pereira do that. He deals with pressure quite well. And, he was able to keep his composure, stay calm when he blew out his knee against Yuri. And he was able to, clip him with the left hook and put him out cold. And, he stiffened him like a board. Oh my gosh, so uncomfortable to talk about. I love my boy Yuri. But, Yuri's one of our favorite fighters too. And, he stiffened Yuri like a board. It was worse than Pereira did Yuri. Way worse than Pereira did Yuri in both fights. The first fight between Pereira and Yuri was kind of like a TKO. Little shots added up on Yuri. But then the second fight was like, oh my gosh, he put him out. He really put him out. But then Carlos Solberg stiffened Yuri like a board. He was stiff on the canvas. I mean, terrible sight, but that's Carlos Solberg is very good. He is very good. However, he did lose to Jan Blachowicz, and I know it counts on his record as a win. And I know the only loss on his record is Kennedy Nzechukwu for his UFC debut, but I do believe that he lost the fight to Jan Blachowicz. I think that Jan Blachowicz won a pretty clear 29-28. Jan Blachowicz is still beating guys like Carlos Solberg at the age of 42. Just how good is Jan Blachowicz, folks? But yeah, Carlos Solberg wins. Ihor Peteria can. Dawoon Jung can. Alonzo Menefield, chinny, but he's still decent. He's decent enough to be outside of the light heavyweight rankings. Volkan Oezdemir, pretty decent win pound for pound. Dominic Reyes, pretty decent win pound for pound, also chinny. Yuri chinny, but good win. Good win. I mean, Yuri's a good win, but obviously we all hope Yuri bounces back stronger. It hurt me not to put Yuri in this pound for pound list, but it is what it is. I guess I couldn't after what we just saw. But we move on. Number 12 ranking. I might shock some of you guys with this one, but I honestly think one more win and he's going to be way higher on the list, and he's going to be way more proven. And he also needs to be more active, but we got Shavkat right here. And he also needs to get healthy. I mean, come on, he's gotten his knee injured 3 times in a row. What is our doctor doing? We need to get back on track. We need a new doctor. We need a new knee surgeon. But yeah, I mean, Ian Gary says he got the injury. It's another reason I hate Ian Gary, just bragging about injuring a guy like Shavkat who's on the rise. He beat you. He doesn't have a problem with you when you're bragging about injuring him on Twitter. Who the fuck does cuck think he is? Who does this cuck Ian Gary think he is? Anyways, I need to stop going on a tangent about Ian Gary. But yeah, all good wins here. Jeff Neal's a pretty good win. Submitted him out cold. He had like a John Jones-esque standing guillotine submission, like John Jones submitted Vitor Belfort, just the standing guillotine. Wait, was it Vitor? It was. This is Shogun Hua. Never mind. This is Shogun Hua. I'm getting everything mixed up with the Unk UFC knowledge. But yeah, Wonder Boy Stephen Thompson, good win still. Ian Gary's is the only fight that he hasn't finished, And Ian Gary is a tough guy to finish. He's really stubborn, rangy, hard to finish on the ground. Ian Gary was in a position where he could have finished somebody that wasn't Shavkat, but we all knew Shavkat wasn't getting finished by Ian Gary on the ground. Come on now. Come on, baby. He wasn't getting finished by Ian Gary. The mad cook of a thing, yeah. Had to rip out the McGregor impression, too. But, yeah, all solid wins by Shavkat. The rest of his wins are also very good, too. He passed the Neil Magny test. His record just doesn't show how good he really is. Like, in these fights, he looks very good. He looks sharp on the feet. He's very, very dangerous with the submissions. He's obviously a killer. Finished 18 of his 19 fights, 19-0. Yeah, I mean, I know I said in the last 3 years, and he's only fought thrice in the last 3 years, but I mean, he's still very good. Still very good. Hopefully he gets healthy. I think he beats everyone in the division except for maybe Islam after that. I think he'll give Islam a run for his money. I think he could beat Islam. That's my hot take of the day. I think Shavkat has the skills to beat Islam. I think he could sub Islam out cold. Actually, no, I don't think he can. Actually, he could. He's very good. Shavkat is very good. I need to stop the glaze, though. We move on to the number 11 spot. Arman Tsarukyan. Some people may think I should have him higher on this list, but when you look at the performances that he's been kind of in, like he almost got knocked out on the feet by Joaquim Silva. That's not a good look from the start. He fought Glass Chin Benny Dariush, the Glass Man. The Glass Man Benny Dariush, and he knocked him out. Good look there. Charles Oliveira, very close win. I think if it went 5 rounds, Charles Oliveira would beat him. That's another hot take. I guess not so hot of a take, but I think that if this went 5 rounds, if that fight at UFC 300, Arman versus Oliveira, if it went 5 rounds, Charles was going to beat him. I think Charles was going to find a submission late, maybe a TKO, something like that. But I do think that in a 5-round fight, Charles Oliveira will find a finish late against Arman Tsarukyan. I don't think he'll do it immediately because he's kind of got to do some processing. He's not going to throw himself out there and kamikaze Arman because he doesn't really do that anymore. Like as we've seen in his fights against Mateusz Gamrot and in Max Holloway, he's been more calculated and he's been more wrestling approach. So I don't think he'll finish him immediately. But anyways, I'm gonna talk about that later. And then a really good submission win over Dan Hooker. I guess Dan Hooker kind of tried to jump a guillotine. Dan Hooker has a no fight IQ as well. Arman made him pay for it. Good ground and pound, cut him open, swelling on his eye. I know that was partially from the headbutt at the ceremonial weigh-ins. I mean, it is what it is. This guy's also doing anything but getting a fight in MMA. I guess it's kind of the UFC's fault, and he's staying active with all the wrestling. But, he's kind of got to stop getting into all these extracurricular situations if he wants to get a fight from the UFC. But, that's where I have Arman. He's a lot better than his resume looks. He is very good. The Joaquim Silva fight kind of worries me for when he fights guys like Ilya. I think Ilya would absolutely murder him. That's a conversation we're going to talk about later as well. But, yeah, we move on into the top 10 of the division. Our boy Tom Aspinall, Sergey Spivak. He's a great fighter. I'd love to fight him. I guess that's not a good Tom impression. I got to try that one in the mirror a few more times. But Tom's a lot better than his resume says as well in the past 3 years. Finished the big march in Taibura. He's a great fighter. Okay. All right, got to stop that. Not a very good impression for me there. Got to take some lessons on that one. Sergey Pavlovich, very, very good finish win. Stunned him with the 3-2 and then another 2-3. Stunned Sergey Pavlovich and then got him out cold. Finished Sergey Pavlovich, I believe, for the first time in his career. Sergey Pavlovich had never been finished before that. And Tom Aspinall, on a week's notice, I'm pretty sure, walked into Madison Square Garden and did that. Just finished Sergey Pavlovich and became the interim UFC heavyweight champion. And, when Jones pulls out, a badass guy like Tom Aspinall will come in. People forget, man. Tom Aspinall made John Jones retire without even fighting him. It's true. And I do think, it's unfortunate that Jones was being such a pussy, because I believe that, Jones and Aspinall it's just such a 50-50 fight. Like, it's very interesting, and I don't know who would win that stylistically. Jones could take him down. Tom Aspinall's got the BJJ. Jones has his own submissions that he could go after. Jones is slick on the feet even at his old age. Aspinall's got the one-hitter quitter power. So, that would have been very interesting, but, too bad that Jones was scared of Tom Aspinall. Very unfortunate that that fight didn't happen, but, Curtis Blades knocked him out in a minute, wrote the wrong from his ACL tear against Blades in the first fight. Hasn't lost in the UFC. He's never lost in the UFC besides the TKO loss against Curtis Blades, where he blew out his knee and just fell down because he blew out his knee. And then the no contest versus Gane. People say Gane was schooling him on the feet. To be honest, I would have gave Gane the first round, but Tom Aspinall was starting to up the ante at the end of the round. He was starting to, get the good strikes in. He threw a spinning back kick. He was starting to enter his flow state. And then Gane started to extend the fingers and played dirty, poked his eye, and, very bad eye poke, double eye poke, deep into the eyes, almost like the orbital wall, I believe it's called, and in one of Aspinall's eyes was almost broken, which could have left him blind. So, that shows just the type of dirty cheater that Cyril Gane is. Hopefully, Alex Pereira slimes this bum out cold. But, Cyril Gane's got finesse on the feet. He was winning the first round. He gave Tom a bloody nose, big deal. Gave a man a bloody nose in a cage fight. Dana White was like, yep, he had him all busted up. Had the kid busted up, and the kid just quit. Not good to see from the UFC president, not promoting your fighters. And yeah, we move on inside the top 10 to the number 9 spot. Some people might think I have him too high at his old age, but he's still very good and he's improving. Charles do Bronx Oliveira. Yeah, he's very, very good. Very, very good wrestling. He's improved a lot. After the Arman Sarukian fight, he's just got way better with the offensive wrestling. We saw it against Chandler. He was good with the offensive wrestling. I obviously, we know obviously Chandler's not the best win to have, especially in the last 3 years. Chandler's got the fight IQ of a squirrel, but, he did last a decision with him. And Charles Oliveira, he made more improvements on the offensive wrestling for the Topuria fight. His game plan was to wrestle. He got double underhooks on Topuria, and then Topuria reversed it into side control. Put Charles Oliveira into crucifix. This is the type of legend that Ilia Topuria is becoming. La Leyenda. That was almost his nickname. I like El Matador better, but it's whatever. Bars there. Anyways, yeah, Topuria dominated him in the loss. That's not a bad loss. Obviously, a quality loss to have. I'm not going to hold that against you. Arman Sarukian. Arman won that over 5 rounds. I think that Charles wins, probably submits him in the later rounds, or finds a TKO, something like that. Arman's kind of chinny. People forget, man. Arman is actually kind of chinny, and he did get stumbled badly by Joaquim Silva. So, I think that in a 5-round fight, Charles will be able to right the wrong. Maybe put that on like an MSG card. 5-round co-main event, Arman versus Charles 2. Matchmaker JJ MMA right here. Yeah, 2 quality losses to have. It's something that I'm not going to hold against Charles here. Beneil Dariush chinned the glass man out cold. Went to decision with Michael Chandler, not the best look. But he did dominate the fight, 49-46. Mateusz Gamrot, after the loss to Ilia, it's just making Ilia look so much better. Better and better Ilia looks. And, he submitted Mateusz Gamrot in the second round. Gamrot landed some decent strikes on the feet, but Charles just kept marching forward. Nothing seemed to stun him, even though Charles is, of course, chinny. He absolutely dominated Gamrot in the grappling, and we saw what Gamrot just did to Rivovich at UFC 327. Masterclass grappling. Gamrot has really good grappling, too. Really good offensive wrestling, good defensive wrestling, and Charles was just able to get the body lock, get the trips, sweeps. he was able to. He was imposing his will on Mateusz Gamrot, and Mateusz Gamrot is a very tough out, and he beats a lot of other guys in the division. But yeah, very quality win there from Charles. And then Max Holloway, at the start of the first round, he started trying to trade with Max, and then everybody's like, oh, we're gonna get this type of fight. And then he gets the body lock on Max, takes him down, and then for the rest of the fight, it was pretty much that type of fight, just a domination. Charles tried for submissions, but for the most of the fight, he just blobbed Max Holloway. He tried elbows from the top. I get it, but it was a boring fight. He did just blob Max Holloway the whole time. But yeah, very dominant performances in all of these wins here from Charles Oliveira. 2 losses that I'm not going to hold against him. Very close fight with Arman. I think over 5 rounds, Charles gets it done. But we'll talk about that one once he gets booked. We move on to the number 8 spot. Our boy Volk. Cooking with Volk, yeah? I wish I could put him higher. I love Volk, but the only wins, he's 3-3 in the last 3 years. But you look at his losses, it's against Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria are both top 10 all time in my opinion. Those are very, very quality losses to have. And in that Islam Makhachev second fight, he had one arm, he was injured, he was coming off the couch. Terrible weight cut from him. He had to fly all the way to Abu Dhabi. So I'm not. This one don't even count. We'll put like a half point for this one for Islam. And only 4 pay-per-views after that he comes back against Ilya and gets flatlined. I can't even say though that was his fault for getting off the couch that quick and getting into that fight, because the shot that Ilya hit him with and the ways that Ilya was beating him, that's going to put out anybody. The shot that Ilya hit him with, that overhand right, will put out anybody. Anybody, even into the welterweight division. He would knock out all welterweights, even a guy like Michael Morales, who's a natural light heavyweight. Ilya will knock out anybody with that strike right there. Volk did look fast in that fight. That was a prime Volk that Ilya beat. Volk did look a lot slower in his fights against Diego Lopez right here. Diego Lopez 1 and Diego Lopez 2, UFC 314, UFC 325. He looked a lot slower here than he did against Ilya. So Ilya was fighting a prime Volk, and the shot that Ilya hit him with, the ways that Ilya broke him down in the striking, would have knocked out any featherweight, any lightweight, any welterweight, period. So very good masterclass there by Ilya. And Islam, the first one, Islam edged out the win 48-47. Really good finish to round 5, though, from Volk. Volk had him on the ropes. Volk almost had him knocked out. Not knocked out, but almost had him finished. Really good ground and pound strikes from the top. So a lot of them were missing, though. So a lot of people overrate his performance in that fight. But, he did really good. 48-47 win, though, from Islam. The Yair Rodriguez win, classic Volk performance. After the first Islam fight, he went to International Fight Week, UFC 290. Masterclass to Yair Rodriguez. Absolute masterclass from Volk. Finished him. We don't usually see a Volk finish, and he finished Yair Rodriguez. He hit him with a flurry of strikes. Yair was crumbling into a little ball, and then Volk hit the double leg, took him down, ground and pound finish from Volk there. And then Diego Lopez won. He stumbled Volk a lot of times. He stumbled Diego Lopez a lot of times. Volk did get dropped in round 2 from Diego Lopez by an overhand over the top. Nearly finished, saved by the bell. He took a lot of damage in this fight. And then he looked decidedly slower in the second fight against Diego Lopez, but he did get it done. I do think that it was a 49-46 or maybe even a 50-45 from Volk in the second fight. I don't know why this fight was booked in the first place. Volk took little to no damage in this fight. He did get clipped and knocked down, but his recovery time was so quick that he got right back up. It was round 3, round 4, Lopez dropped him, clipped him on the chin with the left hook. Volk fell down to his knees and he got right back up, just popped right back up to his feet. Volk is chinny, but his recovery time is very good. So, Volk still got it. I hope to see 1 or 2 more fights out of him. Yeah, he's still number 8 pound for pound at 37 years old in the featherweight division. So very impressive stuff for Volk. Further cementing his legacy as the greatest flyweight of all time. Sorry, not flyweight, featherweight of all time. And yeah, we move on to the next one. This guy's not currently a champion, but he should be. Van Vleut to the win. We all know that. Pantoja came out firing, all guns ablazing. You know, he was throwing every trick in the bag on the feet against Joshua Van. He was starting to dominate him on the feet, and then he threw a high kick, and then a clear mistake. It was a TKO off of Van's action, but just a mistake from Pantoja, a white belt move. Tried to post with his elbow dislocated, and yeah, he lost via freak injury to Joshua Van. And, you know, I guess it counts because it was off of Van's action and it was off of Van pushing him down. But it was just a clear mistake from Pantoja posting on his arm. And, you know, he'll be back. I think he beats everyone in the division. Even though he's 35 years old, 36 years old, however old he is, I think he beats everyone in the division. He beats a Joshua Van. He beats a Manel Kape. You know, he beats Tatsuro Taira. He beats a Lonnie Kavanaugh probably. Kavanaugh's probably his toughest matchup, but I do think he wins that. I don't see anyone knocking him out. He still has a granite chin at the age of 36. You know, no damage done to him, really. No damage has really been done to him in these fights, except for Steve Verseg. That was a close fight. A lot of people say he lost this one to Steve Verseg. I don't think he did. I think it was a close, very, very close 48-47 here win from Steve Verseg. You know, not the best quality win considering Steve Verseg was the number 10 contender at the time. You know, the UFC was just trying to throw together a card, UFC 301, the event right after UFC 300. So they were trying to find a title fight, and, you know, they found Pantoja and Verseg, who was ranked number 10. And yeah, Verseg made it a close fight. And then Brandon Moreno, obviously very, very good win here from Alessandro Pantoja. Moreno is a very, very good win. Regardless, I mean, this was a prime Moreno too. Like right now, Moreno's washed. You know, he got masterclass by Lonnie Kavanaugh, but I think that loss will age well for Moreno. Kaya Sakura, not a great win, obviously. Rear naked choke subbed him out cold though in round 2, and he started to submit people because, you know, he absolutely dominated Kara France in the grappling, dominated Kara France on the feet, you know, with the kicks, with the Muay Thai, and then got the submission in round 3. Always a great sight to see, to get that little creature out of the UFC and get his Haka face out of there. Who knows what's happening to him at City Kickboxing? Pray for Kara France, but yeah, that might be a conversation for another video. We move on. Alessandro Pantoja is very good, and also I met him at UFC 327. If you want to see that picture, I might post it on the channel. But yeah, we move on. We are getting the belt back, by the way. We move on to number 6. This is number 6, right? Yep. Merab Dvalishvili. Yeah, he's number 6. He's still very good. You know, his loss to Petr Yan. Yan had the best training camp of his life, and Yan masterclassed him. Yan stuffed all his takedowns, but we're going to talk about that later. Yeah, his wins are very good. He's got probably one of the best resumes of all time, and that's going to be a conversation for another video too. But, you know, he's got so many good wins, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's got 7 fights in the last 3 years. So he's absolutely activity mogging guys like Shavkat. As of recent, Shavkat has an excuse, but he's activity mogging guys like Shavkat, guys like Arman, guys like Khamzat. You know, he's activity mogging everyone. And I think that's what's got him so high up the ranks so quickly. And, you know, he's able to style on everybody because he's active so much. And, you know, he keeps in shape so much. He's always in fight camp. So that's probably the reason that he gets all these wins and he dominates all these guys. Like Petr Yan in the first fight. Petr Yan was injured, you know. Wait, hold on. Wait a second. Yeah, Yan was injured. Ignore that Yan injured on the losses in there because it should be Yan injured right here. So, yeah, I'm going to remove that right here. But, yeah, Yan was injured in the first fight. And he broke his hand. He broke his right hand, apparently. And it makes sense because I watched back the fight, and Yan wasn't throwing that right hand a lot. Yan was not throwing the right hand a lot, and Yan was getting wrestle-mogged here by Merab. And I think Merab, Merab shot like 47 takedowns here. Very annoying fighting style from the Goblin Merab. And yeah, he beat Henry Cejudo. He dominated Henry Cejudo. Um, he was wrestling the shit out of Sean O'Malley in the first fight, and then Sean O'Malley had him hurt to the body, as I mentioned earlier in the video. He had him hurt to the body with a teep in round 5, and Sean O'Malley could have finished him if he had more urgency, but he was kind of just walking around there trying to pick his shot because that's the style that Sean O'Malley has. But if Sean O'Malley tried to brawl with Merab at the end of round 5, and I guess Merab was kind of hard to track down there, and he did do a good job circling, but yeah, Sean O'Malley almost had him finished in round 5. Then Merab had a miraculous comeback down 2-0 against Umar Nurmagomedov. Great performance by Merab, even though Umar did break his hand. We don't know. I do believe that he did break his hand, but it could be excuse. I don't know. Sean O'Malley, he dominated Sean O'Malley in the second fight. You know, he's gotten a lot better. He got a lot better from like the Sean O'Malley Umar to the Sean O'Malley to Corey Sandhagen. He did improve a lot. He submitted Sean O'Malley with a neck crank, and yeah, he dominated Sean O'Malley before that. He beat him on the feet because Sean O'Malley was worrying so much about the grappling. And then he beat Corey Sandhagen. He almost had him finished on the feet in round 2. He knocked down Corey Sandhagen and started going buck wild on the ground with these ground and pound shots. Herb Dean started to close the distance. We thought there was going to be a finish. You very well could have called it. Corey Sandhagen was almost done. And then for the rest of the fight, Corey Sandhagen just got ragdolled, taken down, and Merab won. Merab masterclass Corey Sandhagen. I think he broke his own record on takedowns. He had like 22 takedowns, something like that. And then he lost to Petr Yan via a masterclass. And Petr Yan had the best training camp of his life. You know, he was mixing up everything. He got more takedowns than Merab. He went 5 for 9 on takedowns when Merab went 2 for 29. I mean, how many Merab shoots so many takedowns. It's incredible. But, you know, Merab's able to keep this crazy pace, and he's got great cardio. He's still number 6 pound for pound. You know, if he beats Petr Yan in the trilogy, I'll move him back up. This list is very subject to change once again. This is a current list, so it's very, very subject to change. So, you know, if you guys want to see me make this list again in 2 months, 3 months' time, just let me know. Maybe even a month's time after UFC 328 said and done. But this is my spot for Merab. We move on to the number 5 slot. Alex Poatan Pereira. Yes, sir. Wait, hey, Pereira, bro. Pereira, he's gonna masterclass. Hey, watch him slime out Cyril Gane at the White House. I see all y'all casuals saying that Cyril Gane's gonna speed mog him. He's gonna technique mog Alex Pereira. No, Alex Pereira's gonna slime out mog, knock out mog Cyril Gane at the White House. He's gonna absolutely slime him out in front of millions to see live in Washington D.C., in the capital of the nation. He's gonna slime out Cyril Gane. It's gonna be beautiful. Cyril Gane's going to try to eye poke, and then Pereira's just going to do that thing that he did against Jamal Hill when Jamal Hill kicked him in the nuts, and he's just going to adjust his eye maybe a little bit, give Herb Dean the hand, and then he's just going to send Cyril Gane into the stratosphere with the left hook, and it's going to be beautiful, and I can't wait to see it. Anyways, there's my little tangent. Very good wins here from Alex Pereira. And he's as active as Merab in the last 3 years. You know, these are the guys that get high up on the pound for pound rankings because they're so active and because they stay in shape like Alex Pereira has. And you know, his wins. Jan Blachowicz, very good win. Very clear 29-28 here from Pereira, but it was a close fight. I'll give Jan that. Jan's a very tough out for a lot of guys. Very, very hard to finish. You almost can't finish Jan. And then Yuri Prochazka. Yuri Prochazka was honestly probably winning the first round. And then Yuri shot in on a takedown. Low fight IQ moment. And actually kind of high. It was kind of smart for Yuri to do that because Alex Pereira kind of had no grappling at the time. He was still a newbie to working with Glover Teixeira on the BJJ and on the wrestling. And then, you know, he paid the price for it. Pereira just started hitting his temple, and then Yuri went out. Another sad sight to see. Jamal Hill, I got caught, you got dominated. I got dominated. You got caught. Jamal Hill. I got dominated. Jamal Hill. The streets will never forget his crash out on podcast. And then he proceeded to get flatlined by Yuri. Beautiful. But anyways, we like Jamal Hill again. And yeah, after that, Alex Pereira takes a short notice fight. Conor McGregor pulls out of his fight, International Fight Week. And Pereira gets the call, fights Yuri again, absolutely flatlines him with a question mark kick. Great performance again from Alex Pereira on on like 4 weeks' notice, something like that. No, this was a week notice. This was a week notice because McGregor pulled out on a week's notice. And yeah, I wouldn't say masterclass Khalil Rountree because Khalil Rountree was winning like the first 1.5 rounds. Probably first 2 rounds. Yeah, he was winning the first 2 rounds. And then Pereira started to pull apart with the calf kicks. Not to sound like Rogan here, but yeah, he pulled apart with the calf kicks and pulled apart. And then he started breaking him down, hitting him with the power shots. And yeah, he broke down Khalil Rountree in round 4, bloodied up. He, if Khalil had a gas tank, he probably would have fared better in that fight. But I still think Pereira would have edged out like a 48-47 decision there. Yeah, and then the losses. I'll outline the losses before the Magomed Ankalaev 2. I really enjoyed talking about that one. Yeah, I mean, he got caught by Adesanya. Adesanya was playing possum, and then Adesanya hit him back with a few shots when he was up against the cage, and then flatlined him out cold. Very iconic moment there from Adesanya, but that was the last that we saw of Prime Izzy, probably until the beginning of the Strickland fight, until he got knocked down by Strickland. Yeah, I mean, he lost to Prime Izzy, and then he lost to Magomed Ankalaev when he was injured. I think Pereira said he had I don't know. I forgot what Pereira's injury was. Maybe a broken rib? No, Ankalaev said he had a broken rib in the second fight. And I think that the broken rib that Ankalaev had in the second fight was based off Pereira's actions when he was 12-6 elbowing him in the ribs. So Pereira, the difference is Pereira probably was injured in fight camp against Ankalaev the first time, but then Pereira caused the injury via his own legal actions in the second fight against him, where he just went at him in the first minute, hit him with the heavy man's overhand, and then Ankalaev tried to shoot, tried to wrestle, and then Pereira just rained down 12-6 elbows. Beautiful sight to see, and finished the Goblin. Gave him the Khabib Lame point at the end. Another beautiful sight to see. Yeah, hopefully he slimes out Gone at the White House. That's my ranking for Pereira right now. I don't think he's higher than a lot of these guys. And we move on. Khamzat Chimaev, I think he's number 4. The UFC website has him at number 3. I'll show you who I have above him. And it's not I'll show you who I have at the number 3 spot. And it's not Islam, it's not Ilya. But, we'll see. But first I'm going to talk about Khamzat. Khamzat, he's got a lot of skill. He's very, very good at the grappling. He has some decent striking, good kicks, good leg kicks, good kicks to the body. He's really good. He's good at the distance management, and then he's got a really good shot where he springs across the canvas, and he gets you down very annoyingly. He's got great scrambles. There was a moment where DDP almost had the positional advantage over him at the start of round 1 after Khamzat shot, and Khamzat just did a good job like rolling onto the top, and he does good in the scramble situations. He did good in the scramble against Kevin Holland, a fresh Kevin Holland too. He's got good submissions. He's got a really good Darce. He's got a good rear naked choke. He submitted Robert Whittaker with the face crank that broke his jaw. So Khamzat must be really strong too. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys in the region are strong like that. And, yeah, I mean, the Kamaru Usman fight was pretty close. You can make the argument that it was a draw. I think that Khamzat edged out the win. He had a 10-8 round in round 1. The other 2 rounds were close. I think Usman won the third, and I think Khamzat won the second. So I think Khamzat won that one 29-27. But yeah, he beat Kamaru Usman, good win, even at middleweight, because Kamaru Usman is a very big welterweight. So even beating him at middleweight is good. and that wasn't even Khamzat's natural weight class at the time. So yeah, and then Robert Whitaker's a good win too. Even though this is a more washed Robert Whitaker, he took him down. Robert Whitaker's known to have pretty good takedown defense too, and known to have pretty decent wrestling credentials. And he submitted Robert Whitaker right away, cranked down his face, broke his jaw, and then Dricus blobbed him, didn't submit him. I would expect him to submit a guy like Dricus, and he didn't submit him. So we'll see how he fares against Strickland. Strickland's a tough matchup, but I do think that you can add Strickland to this list in about 2 weeks' time. I think he'll submit Strickland because Strickland doesn't have very good jiu-jitsu defense. Dricus did show good jiu-jitsu defense, and Khamzat wasn't really trying for submissions though. He was just trying to dominate him with these little ground and pound shots, milking the cow shots. And he's dominated most opponents so far, except for Kamaru Usman and except for Gilbert Burns, who he had a war with. But he did win that one 29-28. But yeah, there you go. That's my ranking for Khamzat. I don't think he's proven enough. I think you can make the argument that he's more skilled than the guys that I put above him, but, he hasn't proven enough yet. And, I would like to see him prove it more against a guy like Sean Strickland or against a guy like Nasruddin Mavov, maybe a guy like I won't even say Joe Pyfer, because you don't need to prove it against a guy like Joe Pyfer. I would like to see him move up to light heavyweight, maybe fight Ankh, maybe fight Costa, Olberg, something like that. But yeah, the guy that I have above him, and this is going to be a controversial one, Petr Yan. Now, this isn't, I promise, guys, this is not a casual take from me. Because, I feel like you beat a guy like Merab like that, and I know, he has 4 fight camps in a year, but, he's still masterclassed a healthy Merab. A healthy Merab, wasn't very dehydrated. The 135 cut isn't that bad for Merab. And Merab's 5'6". I know he's dense, but he's still 5'6". And you beat a guy like Merab, a guy that's really, really good in the wrestling. I think you could beat a guy like Khamzat pound for pound. Pound for pound, Petr Yan, I think, beats Khamzat because, Khamzat's striking, he's more kicky, and then Merab's striking is more big, meaty overhands, more wrestler striking, whereas Khamzat's just, more kick-oriented. I think pound for pound, a guy like Petr Yan would beat a guy like Khamzat. And, that's just because the fundamental striking that Petr Yan possesses, the takedown defense that he showed. I guess Merab and Khamzat do shoot differently. Khamzat kind of has a smoother shot, more explosive than Merab, but probably quicker too, pound for pound. Just the amount of offense that Petr Yan has and the amount of defense that he has too is absolutely insane. And what he showed against Merab, it was an absolute masterclass. He masterclassed Merab. He masterclassed Song Yadong in the later rounds. After the first round, he was able to masterclass Yadong, Figueiredo, Marcus McGee. He wasn't really masterclassing Marcus McGee, but he didn't really need to. That was just like a layup fight that they gave him. Marcus McGee was like a 35-year-old prospect. They just wanted to give Yan a fight, probably before elevating him to a title shot. They didn't think he was going to beat Merab. I did not think he was going to beat Merab. I thought he had a chance because he said he broke his hand in the first fight, and I kind of believed it watching back the fight. He barely threw his right hand. He never threw his right hand in the fight against Merab the first time. Outlining his loss here, he barely threw his right hand, and he was for sure injured. Russians are tough people. They'll die by the sword. They ain't going to mention no injury. Maybe they will if they lose, but anyways, he's going to fight with an injury. Petr Yan, he's tough. He fought with the injury, and he paid for it. He got taken down a lot of times. He got taken down 13 times by Merab. He got beat pretty easily 50-45 by Merab in the first fight. And then he wrote the wrong in the second fight, absolutely masterclassed him. And, I think that he beats a lot of guys, like every single guy below him on this list, I think he beats pound for pound because of what he showed against Merab. because what he showed against some of these guys and the improvements that he's made in the recent fights, like against Merab and against Marcus McGee even. He's not just more calculated. He's more focused on everything. He's so dialed in, and I think he's gonna give problems to everybody. Let's say if he beats Merab in the third fight, if he beats Merab in the trilogy in August or September, I think he beats everyone else in the division. I think the only guy that stylistically could give him a run for his money is Sean O'Malley. Just because, Sean O'Malley's not going to be trying to grapple, so therefore Petr Yan's not going to be imposing the grappling. I don't think Petr Yan beat Sean O'Malley either. I think Sean O'Malley won that fight. So it'll be interesting to see how how Petr Yan, how Sean O'Malley, how they've both, set themselves apart from their first fight, if they rematch again. But, I think that Petr Yan beats everyone else in the division if he beats Merab the third time. So, there you go. We move on to the number 2 spot, and it's one of two guys. Is it Islam Makhachev or is it Ilia Topuria? I think it's Islam Makhachev at number 2, and I think it's Ilia Topuria at number 1. And that's because in the last 3 years, you look at the opponents that Islam's went up against. Alexander Volkanovski won, very good opponent. He beat him 48-47. Good performance by Islam overall. Alexander Volkanovski too. Volk was injured. He had a broken arm coming off the couch. And he paid for it. He got knocked out by a head kick round 1. Terrible weight cut from Volk. It was not a good decision for him to take the fight on a week's notice and come off the couch with a broken arm and cut the weight. And he was fat too. He was fat coming off the couch. He was eating chips, drinking soda, eating pizza. I drink soda, I eat pizza, I hang out with chicks all day, and these fighters still can't beat me. Never mind, I had to pull out the Floyd Mayweather impression. And then he beat Dustin Poirier. It was honestly a 2-2 fight going into the 5th round, and Dustin Poirier, he was cracking Islam Makhachev on the skull, and then Islam was able to take him down, dog out the rest of the round, get a Darce choke on Dustin Poirier. Dustin said he couldn't be submitted with a Darce choke because he was double jointed, and then he gets submitted with the Darce choke. What do you know? That's Islam's special. He grabs his forearm with the Darce, as Joe Rogan says. Islam just grabs his forearm with the Darce. I've never seen anybody do it like that. It's so unorthodox. But another Joe Rogan one for you. But he had a great performance against Dustin Poirier. Obviously, Arman Tsarukyan pulled out with a back injury, and then he had to fight Moicano. Made easy work of Moicano. That's what we expect him to do. Another Darce finish from Islam. The Darce Knight. It's Vicente Luque. And then moved up to welterweight. There's an AI video circulating around of JDM getting blobbed by Islam. And I really wanted to get taken down, but it's obviously defamation of JDM's character. But the government isn't doing anything about it. Come on. Let me snap out of it real quick. Islam blobbed JDM, didn't do anything against him, just laid on top of him. Absolutely riveting stuff from the UFC welterweight champion. He really entertained all the masses with that performance. And he really tried for the finish. And good on Islam. Good on Islam Makhachev. He did he dominated a lot of these fights. Didn't dominate the Dustin fight until he finished him. Close fight here. No losses. Who's number 1. Soy un hombre muy honrado que me... Wait a second. I don't think you can see him. I don't even think you can see him. Wait a second. Let me move this over. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see it. There you go. Okay, now you can see him. Soy un hombre muy honrado que me gusta lo mejor. Hay mujeres no me falta ni el dinero ni el amor. Hey, what you think about that Espanol there? Hey, anyways, let me get to my explanation here. Ilia is clearly the pound for pound number 1 for these reasons specifically. You look at the 3 wins that he's had in a row. Ignore the Josh Emmett right here. Just ignore it. 50-42 win by Ilia, by the way. He didn't get the finish somehow, but Josh Emmett was a tough out, hard to finish unless you were going to submit him. obviously before he gained chinniness against Kevin Vallejos. This fight did contribute to a lot of the damage that Josh Emmett took, resulting to his chinniness. But yeah, I mean, 50-42 against Josh Emmett. Won't talk about that one much longer. 3 straight wins, the 3 greatest straight back-to-back performances in UFC history. So we got Alexander Volkanovski right here. Volk, this is a prime Volk, still fast. I know he just got knocked out before this by Islam Makhachev by head kick. But, this is still a very fast Volk. Volk was doing well in round 1, and then Ilya just blitzes him in round 2, knocks him out with the right overhand. Great sequence, rip into the body from Topuria, and then right overhand sleeps Volkanovski out cold, Golden Freddy style against the cage. He's literally out like Golden Freddy, like this against the cage. Terrible sight to see, but he's just such a savage that he had to do it, And then he drops the rose in the middle of the cage, and he's just so tough. And then the next fight in Abu Dhabi against Max Holloway, 10 pay-per-views later. The one problem with this guy is he's not active. I guess he had the excuse not to be active until the White House. Family situation, I understand. But, he's just not active enough. He needs to fight twice a year. He takes no damage in his fights. But he did take some damage in the fight against Max. Max was, out of all of these opponents, Max did the best against him. I guess you could argue that Volk took a round off him in the first, but Max did do the best against him. Max was sticking him with some shots. He was eating him up to the legs. He was being precise. He wasn't just rushing in. He forced Ilya to blitz him to be able to knock him out. And that's what Ilya did. In round 3, at the start of round 3, his brother says, "Hey, Ilya, start the attack. Start the attack." How badass is that? To say that about a guy named Max Holloway, who's never been finished in his career besides a submission. He's never been knocked out in his career. Max Holloway had never been knocked out in his career up until that point. He's been submitted once by Dustin Poirier, but never finished in his career before the fight against Ilya Topuria. And what does Ilya do? He stumbles in with a 3-2 down the middle. A 3, just a play slap, and then 2 down the middle. Stumbles Max to the cage, and then he starts the attack, just as his brother says. Rips to the body, rips to the head. Max Holloway does a good job getting out of it. We think he might survive. And then Ilya just hits him with a monster left hook. Monster left hook puts out Holloway. Cold, follow-up shots on the ground. And then Ilya wins. Ilya wins again. Another knockout. These 2 guys are top 15 all time. He knocked out Volk, and he knocked out Max Holloway. Both guys are top 15 all time. Both guys are top 15 all time. Knocked him out. Both guys knocked him out. And then you get to Charles Oliveira. He moves up a division. He's trying to become a double champion only after defending his belt once at featherweight. What do you know? He knocks out Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira, some people think, if he gets him on the ground, this could be dangerous for Ilya, though. What does Ilya do? When Charles Oliveira gets double underhooks, if you don't know grappling, it's a very, 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 very advantageous position for somebody like Charles Oliveira. And what does Ilya Topuria do? He catches Charles Oliveira mid-air and reverses his takedown into side control, puts him in crucifix. He escapes a heel hook that Charles Oliveira attempted on the ground, and then he got up unscathed, absolutely unscathed from a ground fight with Charles Oliveira. They get on the feet. Ilya's managing the distance. Charles is walking forward. Not a very smart move to do against a guy like Ilya. And then Ilya knocks out Charles Oliveira with a right hook and a left hook as a follow-up, out cold. 2 follow-up shots that were completely unnecessary. Terrible to see. We all love Charles. And he's just such a savage. And he does it in round 1, and he celebrated the day before. And now he's got 18-0 in his Instagram bio, and he's going to do the same thing to Justin Gaethje, who represents America on the White House lawn. Yeah, that's Ilya Topuria for you guys. And he's going to do that to Justin Gaethje on the White House lawn in front of the president, with a man representing his nation. He's going to do that to Justin Gaethje. And Justin Gaethje, he's not a tough out. He's not the best matchup that you could give to Ilya. The best matchup in the lightweight division you could give to Ilya right now is Arman, and I think that he does the same thing to Arman. He knocks him out cold. And if Arman tries to get him on the ground, he submits Arman. You know why? Because his background is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he has a Greco-Roman background as well. This guy, he's Thanos, and I think that even at 170, he could beat Islam. The toughest matchup for him in the entire UFC right now, if you're talking about featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, is Islam at 170. Islam at 155, Ilya does the same thing to him. But Islam ain't never coming back to 155, let's be real. Islam's weighing like 190 right now. So yeah, I think the fight that the UFC needs to make is Ilya moving up to 170 and fighting Islam Makhachev, and it needs to happen before both of their careers are said and done. And yeah, I just think that he's, all these wins outlined right here, these are all better than all of Islam Makhachev's wins. Yeah, I just think currently right now, the pound for pound number one fighter, and the reason I say pound for pound is weight for weight. What if Ilya weighed the same? What if Ilya was the same exact size as Islam Makhachev? Ilya would destroy Islam Makhachev, in my opinion. So, there you go. That's my pound for pound list. Ilya is the number one. Islam's the clear-cut number two. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye.